She was holding a pair of scissors when a woman in a fur coat walked in and begged her to stop. Not rudely, not with money. She begged her with tears running down her face. Nobody in that salon knew what was happening. And honestly, neither did Claire. This is the story of a woman who thought she had lost everything. Her home, her future, the man she loved. She was cutting hair in a small town just to survive. And then one ordinary Tuesday, everything she buried came walking back through that door. Stay with me, because the ending of this story is going to hit you somewhere deep. Claire Donovan had not always worked in a salon. 3 years ago, she had a life that felt almost too good to be real. She was finishing her nursing degree, living in a bright little apartment in Austin, and she was in love. His name was Daniel Holt. Not the kind of man you forget easily. Tall, quiet. The type who remembered how you took your coffee without ever asking twice. They had met at a bookstore. Claire was reaching for the last copy of a novel she had been searching for weeks. Daniel grabbed it at the same time. They both laughed. He gave it to her. She told him she would buy him a coffee instead. That coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into 2 years. Daniel came from money. A lot of it. His father had built a construction empire from nothing. And by the time Daniel was 30, he was running the company. But he never made Claire feel like she was less. He never held it over her head. With him, she just felt like a person. Like herself. Then his mother came into the picture. Margaret Holt was not a cruel woman. Claire wants people to understand that. She was not evil. She was just afraid. Afraid that her son was going to choose a woman who had nothing, who came from nothing. And that one day that woman would leave and take half of everything with her. Rich families think like that sometimes. They protect what they built, even if it costs them something real. Margaret sat Claire down one afternoon while Daniel was traveling for work. She was polite. She smiled the whole time. And then she said, very calmly, that Claire was not the right fit for this family. That Daniel had responsibilities. That there were expectations. That Claire would eventually feel out of place, and it would be better for everyone if she stepped away now, before things got harder. Claire was 26 years old. She had grown up in a house where the heat got turned off in January. She had worked 2 jobs to pay for school. She had never once in her life asked anyone for anything. And now this woman was sitting across from her in a dining room that was bigger than Claire's entire apartment, asking her to quietly disappear. Claire did not cry in front of Margaret. She kept her face still. She thanked her for the coffee. She drove home. And then she sat on her bathroom floor and cried until her chest hurt. She never told Daniel. Maybe she should have. She has thought about that 1,000 times since. But she was proud. And she was scared. Scared that if she told him, he would have to choose. And she was terrified of what it would do to him if he chose her and lost his family. Or what it would do to her if he chose them. So she made the choice for him. She ended things over the phone. She kept it short. She said she needed to focus on herself. She said she was sorry. She hung up before her voice could crack. Daniel called back 4 times. She did not answer. He showed up at her door. She did not open it. He slid a note under it that said, "Whatever I did, tell me. I'll fix it." She picked that note up off the floor and held it for a long time. Then she put it in a drawer and started packing. She moved to a small town called Grover Falls, 3 hours away. She had a cousin there who let her sleep on a couch for 2 months. She finished her nursing degree online. She picked up a job at a hair salon because the owner, a kind older woman named Patty, did not care about resumes. She just needed someone who showed up and worked hard. Claire was very good at showing up and working hard. The months passed. She got her own place. A small one, but hers. She learned to love the quiet of a small town. She made friends slowly. She stopped checking Daniel's social media sometime around month 5. She told herself she was healing. And mostly, she was. But there are some people who leave a shape in your life. And no matter how much time goes by, you can feel the outline of them in everything you do. Daniel Holt was that shape for Claire. She thought about him when she made coffee in the morning. She thought about him when she passed the bookstore on Main Street. She thought about him on quiet Sundays when the town was still and the world felt too big to face alone. But she kept going. Because that is what Claire Donovan did. It was a Tuesday in November when the bell above the salon door rang and a woman in a long camel coat walked in. Claire was in the middle of a haircut. She had a client in the chair, scissors in hand, halfway through a trim. She glanced up the way you do when someone walks in. Quick. Automatic, not really looking. Then she looked again. She recognized the posture first. Then the jewelry. Then the face. Margaret Holt was standing in the doorway of her salon. Claire's hand went still. Her client said something, but she did not hear it. The scissors stayed frozen in the air. Margaret spotted her immediately, and something happened in that woman's face that Claire had never seen before. All the composure, all the careful politeness, it cracked. Margaret crossed the salon in 6 steps and stood right in front of Claire and said, "Please, put the scissors down. I need to talk to you." Her voice was shaking. Claire set the scissors down. She told her client she would be 5 minutes. She walked Margaret to the back room, a small space with a folding chair and coat hooks and the smell of hair product. And she turned around and said, "How did you find me?" Margaret said, "I have been looking for 3 years." And then she started to cry. Not politely, not quietly. The kind of crying that a person holds inside for too long and then loses control of. She pressed her hand over her mouth and her shoulders shook, and Claire stood there completely frozen, watching the woman who had dismantled her life fall apart in a back room in Grover Falls. When Margaret could speak again, she said she knew what she had done. She said she had told herself for years that it was the right decision, that she was protecting her family, that Claire would have left eventually anyway. She said she had built a wall of reasons so tall that she almost believed it. But then Daniel had gotten sick. Claire felt the floor drop out from under her. Not fatally. Margaret was quick to say that. Not fatal, but serious. A heart condition that came out of nowhere. The kind that puts a person in a hospital bed for 2 weeks and makes them quiet in a way they never were before. And when Daniel was lying in that hospital, in and out of tests and procedures, he said one name. Not his mother's, not a friend's. He said Claire. And Margaret realized what she had done. She had not just pushed away a girlfriend. She had taken her son's person from him. The one human being who made him feel like the world was a manageable place. And he had never stopped missing her. He had dated after Claire, twice. Briefly, but it never went anywhere because he was not really present. He was somewhere else. He was always somewhere else. Margaret had found a letter in his apartment when she was picking up things for him during his recovery. It was sealed, addressed to Claire, never sent. She did not open it, but she held it in her hands and understood everything she needed to understand. She had tracked Claire down through Patty, who had no reason to keep secrets from a woman asking for her employee by name. Margaret looked at Claire and said, "I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know that. But my son deserves a chance to give you that letter himself. That's all I'm asking." Claire stood in that back room for a long time without speaking. Everything in her wanted to say no. 3 years of rebuilding herself. 3 years of learning to be okay. And now this woman was standing in her salon asking her to rip all of it open again. But she thought about that note under her door. "Whatever I did, tell me. I'll fix it." She thought about the shape he had left behind. And she said, "Okay." She drove to the city 2 days later. Margaret had given her an address. Not a hospital. He was home by now. And Claire sat in her car outside his building for 11 minutes before she got out. She knocked on the door. When Daniel opened it, he looked at her the way a person looks at something they stopped believing in. Like she was not real. Like he was waiting to wake up. He said her name. Just that. Just Claire. She said, "Your mom came to my salon." He closed his eyes. He let out a breath like he had been holding it for a long time. He stepped back and let her in. They sat at his kitchen table and talked for 4 hours. He told her about the hospital. She told him about the salon. He told her that he had written her probably 40 letters and thrown them all away except one. She told him that she had left because of his mother and that she had never stopped thinking it was the wrong choice. He did not say anything for a moment. Then he said, "Why didn't you just tell me?" She said, "Because I loved you too much to make you choose." He reached across the table and took her hand. And in that small kitchen, in a city she had left behind, Claire Donovan stopped running. They did not fix everything that afternoon. That is not how real life works. There were hard conversations still ahead. There were things that needed to be said and felt and worked through slowly. But they started. Margaret called Claire the next morning. She did not say much. She said, "Thank you for going." She said, "I'm sorry. For all of it." She said she hoped Claire would give her the chance to be better. Claire said, "We'll see." That was enough for now. Here is the thing about this story that stays with me. Claire did not wait for someone to rescue her. She built a whole life with her own hands in a town where nobody knew her name. She showed up. She worked. She healed. And Daniel did not move on and pretend she never happened. He carried her with him quietly and kept going anyway. Sometimes the people we love do not leave because they stopped loving us. Sometimes they leave because they are trying to protect us from a choice we did not ask them to make. And sometimes, if you are very lucky, the story does not end where you thought it did.